Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Wednesday, March 26th. Derek VanRiper, Eno Sarris here with you on this episode. We are looking for breakout bats, mostly players in their second big league season, trying to find players that will take a massive leap forward. Got a special guest joining us later in the show. Orioles second baseman Jackson Holliday joins the program. So Eno's going to have a chat with Jackson. We're looking forward to that. We got some news and notes here as we get started. An extension, another one. Cal Raleigh gets a 6-year, $150 million extension to remain in Seattle. Takeaways on this deal?
I mean, it's possible he is the best young catcher. I mean, do I have to put young on there? I mean, it's really close once you look at offense plus defense. I mean, you can look at something like the BAT-X WAR projection. He's second to William Contreras. It's a lot more bat forward for William Contreras, and defense, a little bit more defense forward for Cal Raleigh. But, those are the two standards right now of the position among young players. So congratulations to him. And I don't even think he has to cut the K percentage to continue being just a really great player for them. If he does cut the K percentage, that's what might make this deal, a good one for the Mariners beyond whatever sort of cost certainty they get out of it.
Right. It's 3 years before Raleigh hits free agency, so good long-term security for him. Phenomenal defender, gets to that power consistently. Nothing has to change for him to make good on that deal. It seems like he's become, one of the leaders along with Julio Rodriguez. Those are the two faces of the franchise on the position player side, alongside a great rotation. So it's the question of whether they can add to that, just that little bit extra to close the gap on the other top teams in the American League. Cal Raleigh there for the long haul. The more surprising news, I think, out of the AL West, Evan Carter optioned to AAA on Tuesday. And there were some little warning signs. If you were reading the tea leaves closely, you may have noticed that Evan Carter was not in the lineup for a couple of the exhibition games for the Rangers to begin the week. Those are basically dress rehearsals, the way they tend to use those. So Carter goes down to AAA to begin the year. He's still really young, man. He's 22. He won't turn 23 until August. I don't think this means Evan Carter will never be a fixture for the Rangers. It's a little surprising. They're going to use Leody Taveras ahead of him to begin the season, but Carter didn't do himself any favors this spring. Struck out 35% of the time, didn't really get to the power, and is still working his way back from a back injury too. So you just wonder if it's going to take a little more time for Carter to kind of push himself back in the direction of the guy we saw who destroyed Double-A, got the promotion to the big leagues in 2023, and really hit the ground running upon arrival in Texas.
Yeah, I think there's a toggle there where he's, uber patient and maybe too patient at times. I mean, even when he was playing well his rookie season, he struck out 32% of the time, which was weird with a 10% swing strike rate. And then he tried to be maybe a little bit more aggressive in his second try at the league, and then he had the back injury. So I think it's one of those just fits and starts kind of things where he just hasn't had the long runway in the big leagues. I would love to be the team that gave it to them if Texas doesn't want to be that team. But also this is a Texas team that wants to be competitive this year and isn't really going to leave a spot open for someone to kind of struggle through some lumps, I guess. If there was a player that I would do that for, I think it would be Carter. I think that there's a chance here still for a really special player because of his combination of speed and defense and on-base percentage. I think he could still be a better center fielder than Leody Taveras this year. But we have to admit that spring training numbers do matter to some extent in this process, especially if they're trying to see if he's healthy or not. And that the number one thing that does matter in the spring in a small sample like this is strikeout rate and swinging strike rate. So, he's taken, he's seen hundreds of pitches at this point. I would assume maybe 200 pitches around there, and he's swung and missed 14% of the time. That is way too high, and they're signaling that. So there's something going on. I hope he gets it right. It's a bad day for some of my teams. I thought that this would be a perfect time for him, and it kind of dovetails into the rest of our conversation, which is, at least I saw from him a good, really, really elite level sense at the plate, and some okay hard hit numbers, like in his rookie year, the 46%. There was enough there where 7% career barrel rate going into this year. I was like, this guy hits the ball hard enough, has a great sense at the zone of the zone, and has good, really good swinging strike rates. And so I thought this will be the year where he has the strikeout rate that matches the swinging strike rate, and he kind of does something where he goes 20-20 in center field for the Rangers. I guess that's out the door right now, and to some extent, his spring numbers mattered in this.
Yeah, it seems like they definitely played a role in the decision. It could just be a month before he's back in there. Leody Taveras doesn't seem like a very high bar to clear to break back in and claim that spot in center field for the Rangers. Let's talk about Luke Jackson for a second, though. There were some rumblings that perhaps the Rangers were tipping their hand a little bit as far as their plans in the back of the bullpen. We've talked about Chris Martin, Robert Garcia, a couple different guys they've had in the mix. Mark Church was a buzzy sleeper a couple of weeks ago in this bullpen, and now some folks are thinking maybe Luke Jackson is going to be that guy. So what is your read based on what the Rangers are doing, what Bruce Bochy is saying about his bullpen? Who actually is the favorite to lead this team in saves this year? Who are you at least drafting or trying to put at the bottom of your roster?
Yeah, the quote was something along the lines from Bruce Bochy, was something along the lines of, somebody asked him like, oh, is the bullpen all set? And, he said, and just to your point earlier about, these exhibition games are, generally thought of as, dress rehearsals for the regular season. He said, what we used, was pretty close to what we'll do in the regular season. So people are running with that and saying, well, Luke Jackson pitched the ninth. So, if he's saying that's what is pretty close, then, that's got to be it. And Luke Jackson's had an excellent spring with a 45% strikeout rate against a 5% walk rate. The one thing I would say, though, is, first of all, that he is a guy that really pushes the needle when it comes to sliders. In fact, this spring, he has thrown 40 sliders to 20 four-seam fastballs. So he pitches backwards out of the pen. And, Stuff Plus says he's right to do so. His slider is his best pitch. I just don't trust pitchers like that as closers. Also, his fastball velo this spring has been 94. He was 95 before. So he's a guy who pitches backwards that has less velo than he's ever had and has had a good run in the spring. And Chris Martin pitched the eighth. And when you look back at Bruce Bochy saying pretty close to what we will do in the regular season, that could just be, about what we did, except Chris Martin will pitch to the ninth. So I still have my money on Chris Martin, and maybe eventually other as leading for saves in this bullpen over the course of the season. Mark Church looks pretty good. He pitches a little bit backwards too. He has better velo, and he doesn't pitch as backwards. 40 curveballs to 11 fastballs. That's how you get a 45% strikeout rate in spring. I don't think that's how you get through a major league season.
It's a completely renovated bullpen, though, so watching it closely, no matter who starts the job, is going to be important, because whoever starts with it doesn't necessarily finish with it as you try and project what's going to happen in Texas. I do think Chris Martin looks like maybe the best all-around bet for the short term if you're trying to throw a dart there, and it could be a good team that generates lots of opportunities as well. I think that's the other part of the appeal. We did get some clarity from the Giants. It's Landen Roupp ahead of Hayden Birdsong getting that final rotation spot for the Giants.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying here. I did get a little nervous when Birdsong made the bullpen. Made the team, and I thought, well, you're not going to put Birdsong in if he's not going to start. I think that there's going to be some opportunity for Hayden Birdsong to function like Jacob Junis in the short run, and piggyback with some people. If he does transition to the bullpen fully, I think he would be excellent. He would be really, really good. But also, this is a veteran rotation where somebody could grab a hammy at any moment. and they would need Birdsong. So maybe they'll do a secret 6-man. I don't think this goes back a little bit to the idea that like we think a lot about what happens on opening day, and the roster is a sort of a fluid, it's a working document, as you might say. It's like something that will change over the course of the next few weeks. I think maybe the most likely, if everyone stays healthy, is that Jordan Hicks, who hasn't looked that great this spring and would be a great addition to the bullpen, was a guy that was a closer level and is paid, kind of closer-ish money or even setup-ish money. Just send him back to the bullpen and make good on Eno's bold prediction of the Giants have the best bullpen in the big leagues.
bonus bold predictions. I mean, yeah,
because I know that's why that's what they're thinking about. How can we make Eno right?
That's what every team's thinking about. How can we make Eno right in this instance? But no, Landen Roupp, I think, of the guys that have emerged to win a fifth starter spot this spring, would be pretty high on the list of actual sleepers if you haven't drafted yet. If you're drafting the night before opening day or on opening day or a little after, Landen Roupp should have a circle around him as a late pitcher that you actually do want, even though all of those spots are very fluid at this point. Let's get to a few bats that we think could be primed for a breakout in 2025. I think this comes back to a conversation we've had a few times, in that the gap between AAA pitching and big league pitching might be as wide as it's ever been. Layer on top of that the automated balls and strike system and the zones being different between the two levels. And I think you have a case where it is more difficult than ever for a young hitter to make adjustments against big league pitching. So I think a lot of our big step forward guys are year 2, maybe even some year 3 players if they were up and down for a couple of seasons. So who do we like as potential bats primed for a breakout that fit into this group in 2025?
Well, one thing I wanted to do was just look backwards first. And so I wanted to look at the guys who have broken out. So I was like, how did the top 30 players in the big leagues over the last 3 seasons start their careers? And so I went and I looked through the top 30 guys. I did their careers, the first year of their careers, and then I sorted them by reverse OPS. So here are the worst starts for guys who are in the top 30 over the last 3 years. Kyle Tucker, it was only 72 plate appearances, but he had a 439 OPS. Kyle Raleigh had a 532 OPS. Aaron Judge had a 608 OPS. And in the 95 plate appearances that came before he turned into full Aaron Judge. I mean, it was 95 plate appearances of that, and then the next year he hits 52 homers. Trey Turner, 44 plate appearances of a 620 OPS. Jose Ramirez actually took a couple of years to get going. Somewhat similarly, Jose Altuve. Those are the biggest sample guys with an OPS that starts with a 6. Marcus Semien, Xander Bogaerts, who I turned into a meme, has he's just no space in between. Love that. William Contreras, 185. Nolan Arenado had a 706 OPS. One thing that I take away from this, and maybe it's just an ongoing narrative for me, but the guys that you look here that you have hard hit and max EV data for, you basically, the Trey Turner is the only one that doesn't fit into a bucket where either you made good contact even in your poor beginning sample, or you hit the ball really hard. I mean, William Contreras hit the ball 114.2 in his first year. Aaron Judge, even in that crappy little 95 PA sample, 115.2. Cal Raleigh, 113.1. Kyle Tucker had 18% strikeout rate. The only one that doesn't fit my narrative really is Trey Turner. Because even Jose Ramirez and Jose Altuve made a lot of contact, and you're just kind of hoping for them to add power later. Marcus Semien may not fit. Sometimes you just have guys who it's a really small sample and just things didn't go right. I mean, things just didn't fall into place, and it was 75 plate appearances. It was their first taste of the big leagues. They got hit in the mouth, and they got sent back down. So those are hard to sort of figure out. But also, you could also just use pedigree, where it's like, oh, this guy's supposed to be really good, and he had 50 plate appearances last year. I'm not going to say he's bad.
I mean, I think, yeah, if you were talking about a sample of a half season or less, you really have to err on the side of caution before drawing any conclusions about someone's first exposure to big league pitching. You could have up and down situations. You could have a crowded roster like the Orioles had last year. But even I keep pointing to this example. There's two good ones. I mean, Wyatt Langford and Jackson Chourio, as great as they are and have been already in their big league careers, it wasn't from day one. It took some time for both of those guys to get comfortable and to start producing at the levels they were producing at by the end of last season. So one area that you want to look at for possible surprises too, what were strikeout rate improvers in spring training? Are we starting to believe there's a little more value in some of the spring training numbers than we previously thought?
Well, I looked at what you want sample-wise from strikeout rate, and you do generally want more than 60 plate appearances or whatever that they've had this spring. However, you actually start going past what's 50% noise and 50% signal. You actually cross that 50% level somewhere around 50 to 60 plate appearances. And so, this spring, it's meaningful that these guys have reduced their strikeout rates by incredible amounts in some cases. Shea Langoliers has a spring strikeout rate of 2%.
Struck out one time in 44 plate appearances.
And it's really weird because he's hitting a lot of ground balls and, I don't know, maybe he's trying something different and the pitchers haven't adjusted to it yet. But it does tell you that maybe his true talent strikeout rate is south of 27%, where it was last year. But Hunter Goodman has an 8.5% strikeout rate this spring, which I love. Ceddanne Rafaela has really cut his, and that's been part of what makes him a less attractive player to me. If Ceddanne Rafaela is a guy who swings at everything but makes contact at everything, then he fits a sort of profile that I understand. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like the guy who can fly like the wind, hits the ball hard, swings at everything, like a younger Luis Robert Jr., right? That I can understand. But if he's going to strike out 26% of the time, then he also has the Robert Jr. downside, right? But when it's like Marcell Ozuna, who I have age on here, he's 34 years old. I don't know how much I care about that. But Tyler Soderstrom also being down to 8.8% strikeout rate. There could be two breakouts on that athletics roster. So, Goodman and Soderstrom, I think, fit in our second year breakout window, which is to say they weren't that good their first time at the big leagues, but they both hit the ball hard and struck out. And then, oh, look, this spring, they're not striking out. So I would circle those two as being pretty interesting. I don't know if they rise to the level of you needing to put them on your 10 or 12 team league yet. But if they're playing every day and playing pretty well. In Soderstrom's case, I think he's closer. He could be somebody you could pick up. And I did say something mean that I said, if you have Soderstrom as your corner infielder, you messed up. Also, somebody in the Discord was like, I feel attacked. Yeah, I have him. They also had Brian Hayes on their bench, so they had a backup plan. I can see having two or three guys, of which Soderstrom is one. So if you want to put Soderstrom on your bench in a 12-teamer right now, especially if he's catcher eligible, could be a fun time to do so.
I think there's another hack to sort of get into some high growth potential players. Just take a rookie leaderboard from last season and sort by WRC plus from the bottom up, and then start looking at who's actually going to play on that list. Jordan Beck, the playing time situation in Colorado is better for him with the Nolan Jones trade now. Among rookies that qualified for my leaderboard, he had the worst WRC plus, a 32 in 184 plate appearances. But there's power, there's speed, and there's a playing time opportunity. And he goes so late, you could throw that dart, see what happens, and just move on if it doesn't work, right? Victor Scott, similar situation. Looks like he's going to play a lot to begin the season. Has won the starting center field job for the Cardinals. And we think about how we felt about Victor Scott this time last year. That's part of it as well. Like thinking about the long game analysis for all sorts of players and not just throwing that all aside because of a third or a half of a season that just didn't go to script.
Yeah, I think defensive position matters a little bit. If you think back to my original one, Trey Turner and Marcus Semien were the ones that didn't fit, that didn't really have anything good to say about them. What do they do, though? Play a premium defensive position that kept them on the field long enough to show what they could do. Victor Scott struck out 27% of the time last year, max EV 107, hard hit 33%. None of these speaks that well to what he did, but small sample, premium defensive position, I'm in. I also think that max EV is useful here. Max EV gives you power potential. So when I did my sort, I did it by negative, by WAR, in a negative fashion. And Noelvi Marte at the very top was the worst, rookie eligible player last year that had at least 50 plate appearances. He still hit the ball 111.5. And if you look at people who've hit the ball 110.5 or better, you actually start to collect an interesting list of names that you should be thinking about. Hunter Goodman, Jordan Beck is on that list. Another name that's two names that are on that list are Addison Barger and Ben Rice. Ben Rice looks like he might be the starting DH for the New York Yankees. Addison Barger, there are question marks about his K percentage and his role, but he's still being able to hit the ball hard. Curtis Mead made that roster. 112.4 last year. Zach DeCenzo, premium bat speed in the spring. Could still matter for that Houston team. I don't know exactly what his role would be either. So those are some names that I have circled that I think will still matter this year.
Yeah, it's good to get more of these names out there now, because some of these guys, Brooks Baldwin's kind of interesting to me because the playing time's starting to fall into place. He has some speed, even though he doesn't hit the ball as hard as some of the names we mentioned. The opportunity to play a lot, multiple tools to fall back on. Brooks Baldwin could end up being a useful middle infielder in deeper leagues this year, and it wouldn't be that surprising. And his first run against big league pitching was nothing to write home about. And I think I mentioned him back in the players we've rostered the most this season, part of our show last week. Colt Keith is a guy that I keep looking at, and I just keep saying there's probably one more level there. His first couple of months last year, he was just working through, trying to figure it out, changing positions, moving from second to first this year. Probably going to play against some lefties, so it's not a strict platoon situation. You look at the power he was tapping into consistently as he moved up through that Tigers system. It would not surprise me at all if Colt Keith comes in, pops 20 homers this year, nudges the average in OBP up a little bit, because he did a good job tempering whiffs. And I think now it's just adding the quality of contact, getting that back up to the levels we've seen as he moved through that system.
Yeah, and near the top, if you just look at the top in WAR last year among rookie eligible players, and then look at max EVs, like you're getting Merrill, Cowser, Churio, and Mason Wynn. And I know that people right now are a little bit worried about Mason Wynn. Let me tell the person on Discord right now who's waiting for my reply. Sorry, had to start podcasting. I would not drop Mason Wynn for Joey Ortiz, even though I'd put Joey Ortiz in Hall of Fame pants yesterday in the bold predictions. But I would say if you could have both on your roster, it's a good idea, because Mason Wynn's 17% strikeout rate last year, 111.1 max EV. There is still massive breakout potential here because he could steal more. The defense is going to keep him in the lineup. More higher end type breakout prospects that I like. Austin Wells, they're talking about him leading off, a leadoff catcher that looks a lot like Will Smith under the hood, in maybe a nicer park for that power. It's a good power handedness matchup. So, I think Austin Wells, especially like in 12 team leagues, if you run the calculator, you'd be like, oh, Austin Wells is the 12th, 11th catcher. Just do that. Just piece out on all the catchers and take Austin Wells 11 or 12, because he might be the 6th or 5th best catcher next year. He might even be top 3 next year if he comes out and just does what he could do. I think he could hit 250 with 25 homers this year. If he does that on the Yankees team, there'll still be a lot of RBI in there.
Yeah, you're going to get good counting stats to go along with it. Even if Wells doesn't stay in that leadoff spot all year, that could be a little bit fluid, but it's at least the plan they might be rolling out to begin the season based on comments Aaron Boone made recently. So a lot of different sources for these second-year breakouts, and a lot of guys I think are going to be on some teams that bring home fantasy titles at the end of the season as well.
That's right. And then James Wood is my Ellie De La Cruz this year. That was my bold prediction. That just made a lot of sense. He hasn't stolen a base this spring, which makes me mad. But his team stole a lot, so I think maybe eventually he'll steal some bases. We'll see. Maybe it's a slightly, maybe it's more only like a 30-20 season. But hey, if I told you he was going to be Ellie De La Cruz, and you got a 30-20 season from James Wood, would you be that angry at me?
I would not. I would not be angry at you.
Joining us on behalf of the Orioles hospitality partner Brick and Whistle, which is operated by Levy, is Orioles infielder and donut connoisseur Jackson Holliday. Jackson, we saw your Instagram video. It was pretty hilarious. Tell us, do those donuts taste as good as they look?
They're actually really good. Yeah, I happen to love donuts, so it was perfect for me. But yeah, they were very good, and anyone that comes out to the game, I highly recommend them for sure.
That's awesome. I don't think of donuts as a baseball food, but it makes sense to me. I mean, what other fun stuff is cooking up at Camden Yards this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a lot planned. I know there's a warehouse burger that they've been talking about. I know they've got the $5 menu, or however that works, but just trying to encourage guys and people to come out to the games and just create an awesome environment at Camden, as far as the outside and the experience, and obviously we're out there doing our thing, playing the game. I know as a kid going to Cardinal games and getting food and going to different places, that was always something fun for me as a fan. And yeah, I think they're doing a great job.
I actually, I have two young kids, and I feel like the food is the first thing that you love about a baseball game because, sometimes when you're really young, it's like you can't figure out what's going on, but you can figure out you got your cotton candy and you got you got your your donuts now,
Yep, that's right.
I love that park, dude. And it's such a beautiful park, such a great place to debut. We were talking about some fun stuff that's happening at Camden Yards. Was last April like the first time you didn't have fun playing baseball? I mean, I was looking at like your high school batting averages started with 6s and 7s. Like, I mean, this is the first time, and in the minors, you kind of just tore through. Just talk to me a little bit about sort of maybe emotionally what it was like to come up and have all that in front of you, and then have a little bit of struggle at first.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot, coming up with being first pick, being a top prospect, and then going up there and you can't go anywhere without a camera in your face. I mean, obviously, I'm very blessed to be in that situation and have all of that. But I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to try to debut at 20 years old with a lot of pressure and a lot of outside kind of things, as far as just being able to play the game of baseball. So obviously that was difficult, and then obviously playing in the big leagues is just as hard. So I mean, it was a great experience to go up there and struggle. I think I'm gonna be better for it as a player. But to go up, struggle, get sent back down, kind of work on some things, and then when I got called up again, I was a whole lot more comfortable, more settled down, and I'm very excited for this year.
Yeah, I wonder. I think every great player has struggled at some point and had to come out the other side. So that's really important. But like, what was kind of the separator? Because people talking now that the difference between AAA and the big leagues is larger than ever, maybe because of pitching. When you talk about major league pitchers versus AAA pitchers, is it the velo? Is it the number of pitches? Is it the command? What do you think was the big separator?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of all the things that you just said. I mean, obviously there's great pitchers in AAA and guys that are prospects and probably going to be great pitchers in the big leagues. So it's definitely, I think, a little bit of everything. Command's different, the way that they attack you, where they kind of expose your weaknesses. But and yeah, they all have like 5 or 6 pitches that are all really, really good. So it's definitely more challenging. But that's what we're here for. We're competitors. Try to get better each and every day, and you want to be in the big leagues facing the best. And but yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason that they're in the big leagues because they're probably a tick better than the guys in AAA. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're cool with this one. I mean, it's a little bit specific, but I mean, you're talking about game plans. They attack your weaknesses, and I think one thing is like they're really effective at it. Like maybe in the minor leagues, you're like, oh, I know what the book is on me, but like, they can't hit that spot three times in a row. You get to big leagues, maybe they can hit that spot three times in a row. I was looking through your heat maps, and it looked like they were really attacking you low and away. And I noticed two kind of big things when you came back. There was a single off of Cooper Criswell. That was more of a like a kind of a hard ground ball. But I saw one in particular. You hit a single off of Ryan Pepio. I don't know if you remember this. It was like early September, but it was low and away, and it was a line drive in the air. I was like, yes, like, so, was that something that you had to adjust a little bit? And were there mechanical adjustments or sort of approach adjustments that got you out of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think uh, growing up, like that was always like hit the ball the other way, hit the ball the other way, like kind of looking at our half, and I always covered down and away very well coming through high school because I always hit changeups because I just had an approach that my dad taught me from a little kid of hit fastballs the other way and you can adjust. So I think um, the way my swing was kind of at last year, I wasn't able to cover that as much. I
Hmm.
wasn't able to adjust as much. And I think that's just kind of what happened. I mean, if you can throw three pitches down the way, usually you're going to get people out anyway. But
Right. Yeah.
to be able to stay on changeups down the way, to stay on heaters, I think I'm in a lot better spot in my swing and in the positioning that I am whenever I'm about to launch than I was last year. But yeah, I mean, it's usually a good sign if I'm hitting pitches down and away and hitting changeups and hitting line drives the other way. It'll help me stay on and pretty much anything and be able to adjust to all sorts of pitches.
So you made some sort of a bit of a preload adjustment, like a load adjustment, something in
Yeah,
there?
yeah, a little bit. Last year leg kick. This year more of like a toe tap kind of short and stride kind of
Just
thing.
trying to simplify everything because of the velo and because of,
Yeah, yeah. I
just trying
mean,
to.
yeah, be able to put my foot down whenever I want, be able to just swing whenever, opposed to having to kind of perfectly time up the leg kick, even though I've kind of done it my whole life. But I've gone back and forth with the toe tap kind of load thing in high school with two strikes, and I think I'm a little bit stronger than I was then, and um, it's been great. I've cut down swing and miss and spring training, so I guess we'll find out in the season. But I feel pretty good right now.
Yeah, I did notice that. Nice strikeout rate this spring. One thing about development is just such an interesting thing because it comes in fits and spurts. You have to be challenged. You have to struggle to make these adjustments. But you also have kind of a famous father who went through these things himself. And then an organization that's really well regarded for producing hitters and for coaching hitters. Did you ever feel like you had too many voices in your ear? Just in terms of your coach and your dad's telling you to do one thing. I mean, was it ever a little bit too much like that, or was your dad always
Um,
like, what the organization tells you, work on that with them?
yeah, I mean, not too bad. Luckily, like the coaches last year were um, kind of communicating a little bit with my dad, like some of the stuff
Mm.
that he sees. Obviously, hitting with him my whole life, they're very good about that. But no, he's not too kind of up in your face or too hands on, like just little things. Kind of when I was going through that in minor leagues, like, hey, what do you see compared to like what I was doing the year before whenever I was really, really good. So it's just kind
So
of
he knows
simple
your swing. He
things.
knows your swing better than anybody. I mean, he's been
Yeah,
watching it
yeah. I mean,
forever.
just hitting with him my whole life, and obviously the guys that we have now are great, and we had last year great. So just kind of leaning on a little bit of both. I think that's what good players can do is take bits and pieces from all your coaches and people that you trust and use it to the best. So I'm very happy with kind of how I am feeling right now and the coaching staff we have right now. And yeah, I feel really good.
Cool. One last question. There's just some new stats out. Baseball Savant, like this, the stat wing of baseball, has, they have bat speed. They have all these things, these new metrics. The newest metric is contact point, and kind of where your feet are in the box, like how close you are to the plate and how close you are to the back of the box. Do you think about those things ever? Are you sort of monitoring your contact point, thinking about where you're trying to get the ball out in front or trying to let it travel? Like is that anything you track or even think about without tracking it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tracked. I saw the standing in the box thing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it just depends on certain pitches and locations. For me, heater way, you probably don't want to make super far contact out front, or else you're probably going to hit it to first or break your bat. But
rolling it over, right?
Yeah. And so I think it just depends on the pitches. Obviously, it's pretty cool to be able to see an inside heater because you can't really pull an inside heater with late contact point. You got to kind of get your barrel out there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that was an option, but I think that'll be pretty cool.
But it's something you think about intuitively, like as a hitter, right? It's like,
yeah. You come back, you're like, oh, if I would have hit that a little bit more out front, I probably would have hit a homer or a double. And if I wouldn't have been so early, and if I would have stayed behind it and kind of drove the ball the other way, it would have been a lot better. So
I mean,
definitely
the other word for contact point is timing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, may your timing be beautiful and on time all year. Just your contact point be exactly where you need it, and the donuts be warm and fresh. Thank you so much for your time today, Jackson, and go out there and have a great season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, we got to go. Slightly shorter episode today with travel schedules, but be sure to come to our live shows at Bear Bottle Brewing Company. That's on Thursday, March 27th, Friday, March 28th, 4:30 start time, the Bernal Heights location. We'd love to see you there. No tickets required. Come get some Kayakers Cove, the beer that Eno helped brew. We're really looking forward to seeing and meeting a lot of you at those shows. Join our Discord with the link in the show description. Thanks to Jackson Holliday for joining us for an interview for today's show. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. You can find Eno on Bluesky, Sarris.bsky.social. I'm DVR.bsky.social. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Thursday.
Live. Thanks for listening.